Joining us live right now is Mark Hamrick, Senior Economic Analyst and Washington Bureau Chief for Bankrate.com and a friend of the show. Always great to see you here. Based on what you see from this overall report, is this a case in which, the decline that we're seeing in gas prices is sort of masking the continued increase that we're seeing in just about everything else? And for people watching at home right now worried about their budgets, what should be their takeaway right now?
Yeah, great to see you, Michael. Thanks for having me. I wish it were masking these overall price increases we're seeing, and then we wouldn't be needing to have this conversation because inflation wouldn't be the high and persistent problem that it is. But when we're looking at the headline inflation rate moving up more than 8% over the past year, that's 4 times, Michael, the target that the Federal Reserve has, which is, of course, 2%. And so food costs, they are leading the charge here, up 11.4% over the past year. That's the greatest increase on a yearly basis we've seen since 1979. So people hate paying too much for gasoline. We've seen relief on that front. Gas prices aren't yet as low as they were a year ago. Seemingly just about everything else, as you said, does carry a higher price tag.
And so, Mark, when we talk about those food prices, there have been so many issues in terms of supply chain problems and that sort of thing. How much is that factoring into what we're seeing with food versus other factors?
It's a real hodgepodge of causes here, and that's why I get a little knot in my stomach when politicians blame the other side, and both sides are guilty of that, because it's everything from the lockdowns in China, which are continuing, to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, to the supply chain difficulties that began early in the pandemic. We can remember all the shortages that were also associated with not enough workers to do the job because they were sick. And many of these imbalances are the result of the pandemic. So even while we aren't talking about the pandemic on a minute-by-minute basis in terms of its health impacts continuing, it's definitely continuing to cause problems with the economy. At Bankrate, we asked Americans about their outlook for the economy over the next year, year and a half. A majority are concerned about the risk of a recession, and most do not believe that inflation will be lower a year from now. So they're cutting back on discretionary purchases. They're paying down debt with credit cards at the top of the list. They're also saving more for emergencies, and those are all solid strategies.
Yeah, Mark, it's such a strange dichotomy, right? Because the labor market is just so strong. It's so easy to go out and find a job right now. People are getting raises. But on the flip side, you have everything getting so much more expensive. We know the Fed has been trying to respond to this by raising interest rates. They've done so aggressively. Is it just too early to be seeing the effects of that?
It's too early to see it have a measurable impact on inflation. We've seen impacts. The stock market is in the tank. That is one reaction. Cryptocurrencies have been hammered. That's another reaction where risk assets have been devalued aggressively. And the housing market, we've seen slowing home sales for 6 straight months. The housing market has gone from red hot to pretty cool, and indeed one leading industry analyst says that he believes the housing market nationally is in recession. But as we get deeper into this rate cycle, and we believe there may be as many as 3 more rate hikes to come, with the biggest one of those 3 coming up in just about a week, I think we will see those impacts. I think we will see higher unemployment, and we'll see that job market cool as well.
Finally, Mark, in the little bit of time I've got left here, as we kind of look forward, right, what's going to happen over the next few months in terms of inflation, since energy or gas prices at least have dropped substantially, is there any belief out there that that will trickle through the economy, right? It makes transporting things less expensive, and then that may be passed on to the consumer. Is there any reason to believe that we'll start to see this inflationary pressure kind of increase a little bit in the coming months?
I think it will help with food, Michael. It won't help for things like shelter, which have more of a laggy effect in terms of the way they are measured in these inflation gauges, meaning it's hard to sort of extract them. And rents have gone up, home prices have gone up, mortgages in terms of the interest rates have gone up. So I'm optimistic on gasoline, relatively speaking, fairly optimistic on food, but these heating costs, as we get into the midst of winter here, whether it's heating oil or natural gas, I'm afraid those are going to be persistently high, and I think we'll be talking about those in the coming months as well.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some reporting over the next few days about kind of the forecast for heating costs this winter because we expect to get some of those numbers from our local utilities. So we'll keep our viewers updated on that. Mark Hamrick is Senior Economic Analyst and Washington Bureau Chief for Bankrate.com. Mark, thanks as always for sharing some of your time with us.
Thank you, Michael.